So 3 sets in and we still gotten any Countercharger for Royal Paladin, and it's most possibly likely that we won't be getting any Countercharge very soon in the near future for a standard Royal Paladin. And today we're going to discuss that, why that might be the case. Stand up! Vanguard! Hello card fighters, you're watching Vanguard Insider, and today we're going to discuss why Royal Paladin will probably not get a Countercharge card or engine in Standard for quite some long time. We've already been in the reboot for a couple of sets now, and Royal Paladin is one of those classes that already got a couple of support. 3 in total for a fact. And in either of those 3 support waves, we got 0 cards that generate any kind of Countercharge for us. Well, besides the obvious healing a damage that was face down and getting a new damage, but that's something that is just in the game mechanic for every clan. Now what I mean is that we don't have any card that specifically can turn a face down card face up in our damage zone. Before I'm going to basically answer the question why they probably not going to get a Countercharger and why they shouldn't get one, I want to look first at why the other clans did or didn't get a Countercharger and therefore have a more insight of what Bushiroad is going for, what they're trying to make for, as Standard is going to be, as seen as that Bushiroad is trying to make Standard a very balanced game format. And giving every clan everything isn't going to be a balanced way, as seen as that every clan has a different way of using the certain resources, and some clans have a more powerful way of using the resources, so giving each clan a way to get that resource back will have a different impact for each and different clan. So let's take a look at all the different clans first, why they got one and why not. So I'm going to go over every clan, look at what they're going to use their Countercharge for, why they did or didn't get a Countercharger, and how that Countercharger work. Because the way a Countercharger works is also very important part and integral part of the discussion, as an easy Countercharger might have a different way of using as a difficult and a very conditional one. Of course, the first one is the obvious elephant in the room, and that is Kangaroo. Well, Kangaroo is a very generic clan that uses its counterblast to retire specific cards, and they are very conditional retire at that part, as you have Nahalem that can only snipe rearguards in the back row, and you have Bar that can only shoot rearguards in the same column, and basically most of their cards are most of their counterblasts are going to use for retire stuff. And that is very limited in the sense that your opponent is the one that allows you to use your resources or not. So you cannot indefinitely use it, as if your opponent is going to leave an empty field, you cannot use those skills. And as soon as most of Kangaroo's cards are on place effects, you are then left out in an option that you either, you now have the decision to make, am I going to place the card in the field as a vanilla card to at least have some pressure on my opponent, or am I keeping it in my hand and therefore lose out on a lot of pressure as soon as I cannot use my cards to attack them multiple times in the turn. And that way your counterblast cards are limited in your effectiveness, as your opponent can therefore control the pace of the game. That's why they got a Countercharger. But also their Countercharger is very, very specific in the way that it can only countercharge if a unit is retired. So in most cases you need to waste a counterblast to gain a countercharge. So you're not really that often going to plus on your counterblast. You're basically net plusing 0. You can use it to attack a rearguard, and if it hits then it's retired. That also works. But in most cases you're pairing it off with a retire skill that most likely going to cost a counterblast. Now after Oracle Think Tank, it is also a very controversial one, as seen as this clan uses Counterblast to draw cards, manipulate the deck, and all kinds of things that allows them to draw a lot of cards to hand. And they got a Countercharger. And one of the most easier Countercharges as seen as is placed in the field, put it in the soul, and then you're done. But there is a limitation that, unlike some other clans that can have an infinite way of countercharging, this is limited to only 4 copies. Just like Kangaroo is only limited to 4 copies. Only the Kangaroo one allows you to draw a new one, and this one doesn't. You're going to -1 with Gemini. You gain a lot of resources, but you're going to -1 on your head. And that's the balance part in the Gemini card, is that it's not going to plus you on hand, you're going to -1, and you're probably going to pair it off with a card that allows you to draw one. As soon as the counterless one, you draw a card. So you're net plussing that turn for 0 if you have only one Counterblast available. They need to have Counterblasts at all times, as seen as their only way of counterblasting is going to draw cards. They don't really generate power with their Counterblast. They can do that, but that's not their main purpose of the Counterblast. That's basically drawing cards to survive late game, to do something. If they cannot survive the late game, OTT will do nothing. Alright, next up we have Nobu Grappler, and I'm in the same ballpark. I'm going to throw in Aqua Force, as they are very similar. They use their Counterblast basically to generate more attacks. They multi-attack by either restanding rearguards, restanding vanguards, or whatever it takes that you going to restand with your Counterblast. In Nobu Grappler's case, you have a lot of countercharge options, but most of them are very conditional, as you need to either hit with your vanguard, or you need to place a card in the field when you have almost no resources left, or it will cost you a lot of resources from a different kind of resource that is Soul Blast. So there is not really an easy way to countercharge, but you have a lot of options. And in Aqua Force case, you also have a very conditional one that you need to hit a certain waves. I believe you need to hit your 4th wave at least. But if you combine it with your Counterblast, you can probably do that. So again, it's like the Oracle Think Tank and Kangaroo one, that you need to basically use a Counterblast to generate a Counterblast, so it will net you even. And again, these clans definitely need their Counterblast, as seen as their Counterblast allows them to put any kind of pressure. If they lose their Counterblast, they cannot multi-attack. And if an Aqua Force or Nobu Grappler deck cannot multi-attack, they are just dead, sitting dead in the water, and they cannot do anything. They need to keep their constant pressure out every turn after turn after turn. If they cannot do that, they will lose out pressure, and the moment they lose out pressure, it's game over for them. And that's why they got Counterchargers, to allow them to have some form of generating back those resources to allow them to keep attacking. And that's why they got them. But still in a very conditional and awkward way, as seen as if they can easily keep getting Counterblasts back, that might be a little bit too strong. Next we have Mega Kohli, and this is also a clan that uses Counterblast for a lot of different ways. They search out their Great Freeze, they draw a certain couple of cards, but most importantly they use it to stun their opponent's field, lower the power, up their power, and basically get any kind of pressure out against their opponent. And their main engine really revolves around their VR and grabbing those Great Freeze. So their Counterblasts are very important cards. That's why they got, also like Nobu Grappler, a couple of cards that can countercharge. But like Nobu Grappler, their cards are very awkward in use. They either need to hit, they need to be placed on the field when you don't have really a lot of countercharge left, or it's just that you need to sacrifice your resources in somewhat. But then again, it's still quite easy to play around, as seen as their main focus card uses to Counterblast, and there's really not an easy way to generate an extra Counterblast when you already have one face up. And that makes it a little bit awkward, and seen as your opponent can really play around it, it doesn't really do much. Granted, they have that promo in Japan, but we still haven't got a TCG here yet, so I'm not going to evaluate that in this equation, but when we get that, that makes the deck a lot more consistent. But still not too strong, as seen as their main pressure relies on the Counterblast to VR skill. If they cannot, if they don't have access to it, they do nothing, and that's why they need their countercharges throughout the game to have even remotely access to their power plays, otherwise it just does nothing. Now on to Granblue. This clan basically used their cards to resurrect units from the drop zone. That's all they do with their Counterblast, getting new cards from the drop zone back to the field. And the moment that they have no Counterblast, they cannot resurrect new cards to the field, and as seen as they don't draw a lot, they have not a lot of cards in hand to allow them to call it to the field, and they will just be vanilla attacking with the Vanguard or do nothing, and maybe some low odd attacks, and that's about it. That's why they need their countercharge, and that's why they got a countercharge, but still a very limited one, as they can only use it 3 times in the game, as seen as keep getting Counterblast back and keep getting refund units to the field can be a bit too strong. That's why they only limited to 3 countercharges, with binding your own cutlasses, and that makes it a little bit more fair. Otherwise you can just generate 2 to 3 units each turn if you can countercharge like 5, 6, 7, 8 times in the game. Well, next up we have Shadow Paladin, and Shadow Paladin is a little bit different than most clans in that regard, as we just talked about it. Every clan that got a countercharger needed to keep sustaining pressure, because without Counterblast they cannot do any pressure. Shadow Paladin is a little bit different than that, As soon as they use their counterblast to drawing cards, calling cards from hand, and retiring opponent's units. So they can do a lot with their counterblast. And they can have a lot of strong units, so they can keep generating a lot of pressure in the form of high beat sticks. So they have still some pressure left without counterblast. And that's why even they got a countercharger, but their countercharger is extremely limited in the way that you can use it. You can only pair it with 2 other skills, and that will cost counterblast. So you're just net even. And even to generate the countercharge, I believe you need to soul blast, so that will also cost you another resources. So you're very limited in the way that you can use your countercharger. You can use it in combination with Kevlar, but you need to be extremely lucky to get it off. The moment that Shadow Paladin loses any form of counterblast, they are pretty vanilla, but they can still perform well because of their strong cards. But the moment that they have no way to retire anything anymore, that's the moment that your opponent can pick up the pace and regain their losses, and then can suddenly turn the tables against you. And that's why Shadow Paladin needs to have a form of a countercharger, but a definitely limited one. So the one that they got is very well balanced. Alright, next up we have Pale Moon, and they use counterblast basically for multi-tacking, and multi-tacking a lot. And unlike Nobu Tama and Aqua, they also gain new rear guards in the sense that they come from the soul and then goes back. So their counterblasts are a lot stronger than those two Axel clans. And that's why they got a more limited way of countercharging. They got 2 cards, Nobu Tama got 3. And also their counterblast generating cards are very limited and restricted in a way that you can... Knife Dancing can only be used when you have basically nothing left. And the other one, the Great Free, that Comicality Dragon, force you to waste another soul. And souls are very important, so the moment that you're very tight on your soul and everything is key pieces, if you want to generate a countercharge, you need to sacrifice some good key pieces. So in that sense it's balanced. And also you need to run a vanilla grade 3 in your deck, and that can also be a little bit awkward. So in that sense it's more balanced in the way that how strong Pale Moon is. So their counterblast effects are a lot stronger, but their countercharge cards are a little bit more limited than Aqua and Nobu Tama. Next up we have Dark Regulars. Dark Regulars basically use their counterblast to generate more souls and a little bit advantage in maybe retiring something, and of course in their No Life King power play. But most important, it helps with generating more pressure and building up the soul. So their counterblast skills are very important for their engine. They need to have access to their counterblast to have their engine active. And that's why they got their counterblast card in the form of Frolacos. But again, with Frolacos and Ruthven. But again, they can work out without their counterblast and they can really manage it out. So that's why they made it a 2-card combo. It's a little bit awkward, but it's still very effective. And you can use it very effectively within your engine. But they didn't want to give Dark Regulars basically a very easy access to a countercharger, as seen as their counterblast skills are a 2-parter in most cases. They can generate soul and retire something, or they can use a very strong restander, and they don't want to give you Dark Regulars players an easy access to keep restanding their Vanguard. So that's why they did it in this sense, to balance it out. But they couldn't go without a countercharger, as seen as that the Dark Regulars is very easy to play around if they cannot generate any new countercharge. So that's why they were given one, but that's why it was in the case of a 2-skill combo card to generate a countercharge. So in that sense it's balanced in that way. Well, now we're getting to Gold Paladin, and this is going to be a very interesting one, as soon as they're using their counterblast as well as their soul blast to generate all forms of multi-tacking. Gold Paladin is a little bit stronger than most Axel decks, as soon as they can generate the multi-tacking in most cases after the attack step, after the damage step. So you know if your opponent's got a damage trigger. If you get a clan that can easily multi-tack like that, countercharge, that can really spiral out of control very fast. And especially with the upcoming ASL that uses counterblast to generate a lot of power pressure with a crit and everything, that's going to be even more crazy. If you're going to give them countercharge, it needs to be a heavy restriction on it. And they did it in a way that you need to call it from hand throughout the skill, and it costs you soul. And soul, like I said before, is another way that they multi-tag. So you need to weigh your options. Do I want to keep my counterblast to generate new counterblast to multi-tag through that one, or I want to keep my soul because I want to use my soul for multi-tagging? And that makes that countercharge card a very very interesting card in the sense that you cannot just splash it in any deck and just think, yeah, I'm gonna have 4 Counterchargers in my deck. No, you need to call it throughout the skill, so you're probably going to waste resources to do it so. And then you also need to weigh your options. Do I want to use it or not? And luckily, you can also use it to draw cards, so you have a more versatile use of it. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be run in most decks, or in some decks, as seen as you maybe want to focus more on your soul than on your counterblast. So in that sense, it's balanced in that way. Next up, we have Angel Feathers, and Angel Feathers didn't get any countercharge per se, but they manipulate their damage zone very effectively. You can generate countercharge in the sense that you can flip up open cards, then use the face down cards, and then generate new face up cards in your damage zone. But in the same sense, if you want to use it like that, you are probably limited in most plays, as you have not really full control of what's in your damage zone. So if the first couple of damage were useless cards or triggers, and you need to flip one face down, and then it's through your normal play, you would pick that face down card, you probably don't want to pick up that trigger. So it can limit you in your plays, it can limit in what you can do, and in that sense it's balanced. And with the whole hospital card that you need to face down everything, it's going to even out at the end of the game. Well, next up we have Nobu Tama, and this is a very new one, so I'm not really that experienced on how it would impact the game. But they use your counterblast for all kinds of effects that they can use any form of pressure. I believe they have one for bouncing back a card for their hand, bouncing back for your opponent's hand, and all kinds of shenanigans that they're gonna use it for. And like in any other deck what we've seen so far, their counterblast is mainly supported to have any kind of pressure on the field. If they don't have access to it, they probably can do nothing with it. And that's why they have a countercharge card, but it's a very conditional one. And this is the reason that it's a very conditional one is that if you have an easy access to a Nobu Tama with all their bouncing back and discarding, that can really be very overpowered if you can have access to that every turn. And also with the multi-attacking of Magatsu Storm in a Protect clan, that can also be very nuts. So that's why their countercharge is very conditional in the way that it's limited. Alright, we're going to the last clan with the countercharger, but it's not the last clan we're going to talk about, and that is Narukami. And Narukami uses their counterblast basically to bind rearguards, and in that case, in Narukami's case, only from the front row. And they also have it to have some pressure in the form of resetting their Vanguard and all those kinds of good things. And same as Kangaroo, you're very limited in what your opponent does, even more than Kangaroo, as seen as it's only the front row. But they have some skills that allows you to force your opponent to call out units to the front row, as seen as they can benefit from an empty field or an empty front row. So there's a more incentive from your opponent to call units to the field. And as seen as this binding really helps a lot with other skills in combination with Rising Phoenix, for example. One counterblast can generate a lot of pressure, a lot of resources. And that's why giving Narukami a countercharger, a very easy countercharger, that's going to really can be really broken. And to basically halter that issue, you cannot give it the same countercharge that they give to Kagero. So they gave one like Kagero that you need to have the right condition, but it also will cost you a lot of soul. And soul is also resources they use. So you're going to limit in a way that they can use their skills. You cannot go full aggro with all your retire skill that use Counterblast and Soul Blast, as seen as you cannot then use the Countercharger. And that really makes this Countercharger legit in Narukami in the way that Narukami needs to bind stuff, otherwise they will lose out their plays. Most plays are really consistent of that you keep binding stuff from your opponent, and also to empty out their field. If you cannot do that anymore, the deck falls flat on its face, and that's why it needs a form of a Countercharger. But unlike Kagero, for example, their skills are a lot more powerful, so an easy countercharge is going to be very powerful, more powerful than Kagero, so in that sense you need to balance it that way, and they did it with Narukami's countercharger. So in that sense, it's a great fit. Well, let's go over the couple of decks that I haven't talked about and why these didn't get a countercharger and the reason why they didn't get a countercharger, and then we're going back to the topic of this video and take everything in the whole picture and then see why Royal Paladin's case that it didn't get a countercharge. So first off, let's talk about Tachikaze. And Tachikaze doesn't really use their counterblast a lot, but the value they get from a single counterblast is very high. They can draw 2 cards from one counterblast, and most K clans, I mean Oracle Think Tank that is basically mained in drawing cards, can basically only draw one card from one counterblast. They can draw two from one. And because their value in their counterblast is so much higher than most specialized clans, giving them a countercharger will have way more impact in the game, as seen as the value behind the counterblast is way higher. But combine that with the fact that they don't really have a lot of counterblast cards, and also that the main engine of the deck doesn't really revolve around those counterblast cards, it's not really necessary and basically important to give them the countercharger even in the first place. So that's why they didn't get a countercharger in this first set. It's probably likely that they might be getting one in the future, but it's going to be a very heavily restricted card in the sense that those counterblast cards generate way more upsides than most clans do with a single counterblast. Well, then we have Murakumo, and I mean, Zanbaku is... do I need to even say it anymore? They can lock down your opponent for at least one time in the game, and if you give him even a card that states you can only countercharge once in a game, they can do it twice. And once is already detrimental to most decks, and that's basically a death sentence. If they can do it twice, it's game over. That deck would be broken. And that's why they didn't get it. Also compared with the other skills that can Superior Call themselves. Superior Calling is one of the most strongest skills that you can have in Vanguard, as seen as you get a new unit to the field. It's a +1. You filter your deck, so you're going one card less on your deck, and it isn't a trigger, so you have higher chance of getting your triggers. So in that sense, if you're a Murakumo player, don't expect an countercharge anytime soon. Then well, we have Dementia Police that also doesn't have any countercharger. And I mean, they have the Yusha and Laurel. Do I need to say anymore that they basically, I think, they got the most value in a single counterblast card. Laurel doubles the power of a Vanguard and gives us the crit, or even a rearguard for that matter. And the ultimate great Yusha that generates like 50k, 60k, a rewrite, +2 on the hand, an extra force marker, and all those kinds of things for only a single counterblast. There's a reason why I gave that card 6 stars. It's insane how strong that card is, and those are the reasons why they shouldn't get a countercharge. Well, next up we have Neo Nectar, and in the same case as the mentioned Yusha, they generate so much pressure and so much value with single counterblast. I mean, their VR can generate 3 units with gigantic power columns for the same counterblast. And you can have Imansu that can give power to the same column, draw a card, and all those kinds of insane things. And they are a force clan that can easily fill out the field, get a giant hand size, a healthy hand size, and pressure opponent like crazy. And that's without the countercharger. I think that's reason enough why they shouldn't get a countercharger, as seen as they can easily pressure out the opponent, even if they have 0 counterblasts left, just like Dementia Police. And lastly on the list, we have Spike Brothers, and this one is a little bit of an enigma, as seen as they are very similar to Royal Paladin in the sense that they superior call cards from the deck and they generate new cards on the field. But they got counterchargers, and in the form of 2 cards. They got the Grade 0 and the Grade 3. But as most players can notice, those cards are really, and I mean really awkward to play. The Grade 3 needs to be on the field for an entire turn before it can generate a counterblast. So that thing has a gigantic bullseye on its head that everybody is going to try to get rid of. And the Grade 0 is pretty good, but it's a Grade 0. This one really stumped me for the longest time. As seen as why did Spike Brothers got a countercharger and why did Royal Paladin did it? But then it really hits me. The big difference between Spike Brothers and Royal Paladin is the fact in the way that the superior call. As seen as that both clans superior called from deck. So they both deck fin, they both search out a specific unit, and it will help out that you will get easier triggers in your deck. The big difference in Royal Paladin and Spike Brothers is that Spike Brothers doesn't plus on it. They will need to have a unit on the field, and then they will need to put it into the soul and then call out the card. And that needs to be at the beginning of your turn. So they need to stay on the field. They need to survive that turn. So if it doesn't get killed or it is destroyed, But as soon as you have back row units that probably going to survive, you can use it in combine with your VR skill, Counterblast 1, put it into the soul and call it out. But as you can see, you will put an existing rearguard back in the soul, you go -1 on that one, and then you call it out. So you're net plussing 0, but you deck finned on it, but you gain power. But Royal Paladin can do the same thing, but they don't have to waste the rearguard on it. They will place a new card, use a skill, call the card and get +1 because there's another rearguard on the field. And that's the big difference. That is why Spike Brother didn't get a Countercharger, but as you can see, an extremely awkward one. It's extremely awkward to use. And that's probably the reason why Royal Paladin does it. Now that we have discussed all clans, let's go back to the main question and see why Royal Paladin is probably not going to get it. Well, I probably already answered the question when I go over the Spike Brothers. I see the clans are very similar. But as you can see with most of the Royal Paladin cards, like Akane and also the new Benevere and Bedivere cards, I'm not really good with names. But also with Alfred for that matter, and Alfred early, that just can superior call on the field. And now especially with the new Alfred that can get a Bluster Blade back from the drop zone, you have infinite access to rear guards. And that is, unlike Kangaroo for example, that needs to wait until your opponent does something and then you can react to it. Royal Paladin is active, Kangaroo is reactive. And active skills are always going to be stronger than reactive skills as soon as you have the tempo plays. And because you can deck filter at the same time and you plus on the field and you can basically get a specific card on the field, that single Counterblast has so much more value than any kind of card. For example, let's take Oracle Think Tank, the most hated clan in Standard. Their Counterblast in most cases will be draw a card, so the +1 in the hand, and maybe manipulate the top deck, see if it is the top or not. That is completely RNG of what kind of cards you have in hand. If you draw blindly, that can be a trigger, and that's not something that you want. And then you need to have lucky that the top deck is going to be triggered, that you can leave it on top, and otherwise it's bottom. It's completely RNG. You have no way of manipulating that specific segment of the skill. It's only after you resolved it, you have manipulated something. In Royal Paladin's case, you have 100% full control of everything. You get a specific card, you don't have to be scared about the fact that you might getting a trigger as soon as you draw a specific card from your deck and then call it immediately to the field. And that is the crazy part about the Royal Paladin Counterblast effects. They have way more value behind them than any other clan that can have access to them. You could use the argument, well, at a certain point you're out of your cards and you can use it. Well, thanks to the new Alfred, it doesn't matter as soon as you can get your Bluster Blade from the drop zone. So you have always access to the cards. And that makes it insane. And that's the reason why it's even more unlikely that we'll get any Countercharger anytime soon. Also, they have Exploitate. One Counterblast, you restand, you field nuke, you double attack with your Vanguard. I mean, that was even stronger than what Next Stage was. And everybody was losing their mind over Next Stage when that thing was released for Gear Chronicle. I mean, how? I cannot see this. I'm missing something that's why you should think that they would get a Countercharger, or why they should need it. Because we looked at all the clans in a broader picture, we can see a very interesting thing. Most clans that have access to Counterchargers are either Exile or Protect. Most clans that don't have access to Counterchargers are Force clans. And the reason why that is Protect and Exile, if they have no access to their engine or whatsoever, they will do basically nothing. Protect has no extra power in the field, so they will just be generic 12k, 13k, or their columns at 70, 18, and anybody can deal with that. That they will basically do nothing from that point, because a Perfect Guard in hand has no way of killing your opponent. You survive stuff, but you cannot kill your opponent. Exile on the other hand, yeah, they had those Exile markers, but the moment they cannot generate any more advantages, they probably have no way of filling those circles. And then it's just game over. Force on the other hand, the moment they lose their engine whatsoever and they can just vanilla attack, they can place a trigger on the field. And if they have 2-3 markers on that thing, it's a 25-35 marker. That's free pressure that they can generate without Counterblast. So there's an easy way to say, well, Force clans don't need Countercharge as soon as they can, at the end of the game, when they are out of their Countercharge, as soon as most likely at the end of the stages of the game, they will have enough force markers on the field to put up free pressure that your opponent probably cannot do anymore, and I don't need to have any way of getting more advantages. With that, I think I covered everything that I needed to cover. Why Royal Paladin didn't get a Countercharger, or why even any clan didn't get or got a Countercharger. And yeah, like I said before, you might disagree with my points that I made in this video, you might disagree with the entire video at all. But that's fine. We got the comment section down below for that. But as always guys, you know what to do. If you like the video, subscribe, hitting the bell button, liking the video and all this good stuff. We are currently doing a very special Christmas special that I like to call the Christmas special of Cardfight Vanguard, where we're going over all the sets that were released this year and go reminiscing about how the community reacted at that point, or how we experienced everything from that specific set at the time. And basically it's a big trip down memory lane through this year. So if you're interested in those videos and that's Christmas special, and we're going to open up all those different packs, and at the end of the special we're going to battle it out with the opened cards and see who's going to be the supreme ruler of this year Christmas special. If you're interested in that, then quickly go into that video playlist that's on top here, or here, no, it's here, and check out that fun Christmas goodness. But as always guys, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.